want to express some gratitude and thanks to all the people that make this happen. Matt and Cody, Ginny, Katie, Amber, Lee, the Kevins. There's a lot of work going on to make this happen, and it's really great. So I'm happy to be here, and all the members of my workshop. All right, so this is a short story called A Domestic Tyranny. The new puppy entered without knocking. He trotted right past us in the living room, his pink tongue flapping spit on the carpet. He was a stout white dog, about knee-high, with a brown blotch on his back. The kids were thrilled. "I love him," my son said. "A new puppy," my daughter said. "He's beautiful." After my children and wife had gone to sleep, I slipped out of bed for a glass of water. Despite the lateness of the hour, the puppy's bedroom light was still on. I knocked, 2 light taps, then opened his door. "Everything okay in here?" I said in a friendly tone, peeking my head in the room. "How are you settling in? Need anything?" The puppy was reaching his paw under the bed. Clearly he was concealing something under there, pushing it in deeper with his paw. "What do you think you're doing?" I said. The puppy turned his head, surprised. Then he spun around and barked with terrible ferocity. Saliva dribbled from his chin. The puppy took 2 quick steps and lunged at me, his sharp teeth bared. Startled, I pulled the door shut and retreated down the hall. The following morning at breakfast, I called a family meeting. I wanted to nip this puppy situation in the bud. My wife, Mary Ellen, claimed that she had a stack of student papers to grade. She was already way behind on her work. "Not now, honey," she said. "I'm really, really busy. Rain check?" But I was adamant. Call me old-fashioned, but I still preferred the traditional way of choosing a dog. Once upon a time, you took your wife and kids to the kennel or pound, and you shook hands with the candidates, rubbed their bellies, checked them for infirmities or open sores. They lined up and presented themselves. You tried to imagine if this one or that one would be a good match for your family. But this brash new puppy circumvented this time-tested democratic system. By inviting himself into our home, he seemed to be setting a dangerous new precedent. I considered it my duty to point this out to my family. We had to act swiftly. The children, I could see, were already smitten. The puppy reminded them of themselves. He was clumsy, playful, and indifferent to any rules that impeded mindless fun and instant gratification. As a human resources manager, I had learned to confront possible misunderstandings head-on, ASAP, in a straightforward and adult fashion, bringing opposing parties to the same table, a form of intervention designed to mitigate any potential bruised feelings. I scheduled another family meeting for that same evening, an unprecedented twofer that I hoped underscored the urgency of the situation. I opened the meeting informally, ignoring the formalities of Robert's rules. "I think you all know why we're here." Normally, of course, I would have followed the proper order of business, but I wanted to address the hot button issue immediately. The puppy couldn't hear us, I hoped. Who knew what he was doing behind the closed door of his bedroom? Concealing bones beneath the bureau, I imagined. "We have a situation on our hands," I said. "It's this new puppy." "Let's call him Tex," my son Charlie said. "Tex is a really good name for a dog. Brian has a dog, and guess what his name is? Tex." I shook my head. "No, I don't think so, son." I placed my palms flat on the table. "You see, naming a dog only breeds familiarity." "Tex! Tex!" echoed Alice. She had a brown smear on her cheek that might have been dirt, might have been chocolate. "All in favor?" asked Mary Ellen stealthily, her green pen lodged behind her right ear. 3 hands raised. "Motion carries," she concluded. She rose from the table, papers tucked under her arm, and left the room. "Meeting adjourned," she said over her shoulder. The kids hopped down from their chairs and ran into the kitchen, seeking popsicles and hours of puppy play. Admiringly, I watched my wife return to her apple-shaped indentation on the sofa, where she would grade papers for the rest of the evening. Nobody said Mary Ellen wasn't efficient. She was a veritable who's who in our family. A woman who scored Off the charts in the expected value ratio and McKinsey's 7S framework. A tremendous motivational speaker, a 34-year-old dynamo known for her quick wit and willingness to work overtime, Mary Ellen had made my list of ones to watch. I had done my due diligence, held out for a full buy-in partner with more than just core competency, and was reaping the rewards. Was I the only one who recognized the serious problem we had on our hands? Tex was not a team player. Tex was a negative cash flow drain that could not be justified in the year-end bookkeeping. I was confident that when my family reviewed the quarterly budget, copies of which I distributed to each of them, thumbtacking the printouts to the bulletin boards outside their bedrooms, they would agree that Tex was not contributing any tangible gain to the family's resources. Tex was a spoiled, erratic, lone wolf type who couldn't be counted on at crunch time. Willie, our previous dog, an ASPCA acquisition, used to leave his bedroom door open. You'd pass in the hallway and it was nice to see him in there working. Hiya, Willie, you'd say chummily, or warm out tonight, eh, Willie? It was comfortable. He was about as laid back a pet as the family could hope for. Part yellow lab, part mongrel. Willie spent hours licking his testicles, keeping everything polished and up to snuff. This new puppy ignored me when I talked to him. He yawned until I was finished speaking, his long, curling pink tongue jutting from his mouth. His entitled behavior suggested that I was the interloper in the house, not him. It unnerved me, but nobody else seemed to notice. That was the brilliance of his plan. He knew that the others would think that I had the problem, that I needed help. It was crafty, I grant the puppy that. Willie, for all his slobbery charm, was far less calculating. He was much more invested in the sensory pleasures of eating, drinking, and sleeping. But the new puppy was different. We were dealing with a whole new set of parameters with Tex. Finally, after watching Tex act out lone wolf style all week long, ignoring every single law I had devised, making unilateral decisions about slipper destruction and invasion of bedrooms, I called another family meeting. Mary Ellen groaned, took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. Not a chance, she said, I'm busy. But I was adamant. Everybody showed up. Charlie and Alice climbed up onto the big person chairs and awaited further instructions. I viewed them as reliable team members with excellent attendance numbers and high scores in the most valuable areas of family life: love, loyalty, and punctuality. Has anybody noticed anything odd about the puppy? I began, after taking silent roll call with my eyes. Anything? Go ahead and say the first thing that comes to your mind, even if it's negative. Tex fetched today, Charlie said. He fetched in the backyard. I threw a stick in the air and he, okay, fine, I said. Tex fetched a stick. Duly noted. What else, Alice? I love Tex. Charlie laughed and smacked his sticky little hands down on the edge of the table. Tex runs and jumps and he can catch the stick. That's enough, son, I said, shaking my pencil at him. You had your turn. Relinquish the floor, please. Charlie was a hard-working 6-year-old, a spunky right-brain thinker with leadership potential, a pace setter with good instincts who sometimes, unfortunately, had a tendency to reach for the lowest-hanging fruit. However, he was an opinionated little contributor who knew exactly what he wanted, though his heated emotions governed his behavior early in the morning and late at night. Helicopter view, you could count on Charlie in crunch time. Tex, he said again. Damn it, where was our loyalty to old Willie? That's what I wanted to know. Was this simply how life goes, as they say, in the leafy, sheltered confines of our neighborhood? Out with the old dog and in with the new, the old dog forgotten like last week's pop star, no bon voyage, no portrait above the mantle, nothing? And the new dog systematically deconstructing the previous dog's best work while we stood by and passively watched? What would our neighbors think of us? Alice, I said, touching my daughter's hand, has Tex bitten you? Has he been a very bad dog? Would you like to file a formal complaint against him? Nuh-uh, she said, shaking her head. Tex fetched the stick. Slight of build, but refreshingly enthusiastic, prone to follow the pack with no inclination to lead. Alice was a supportive team player, a 5-year-old with a good head on her shoulders and an ear for the telling to tale. She had not yet impressed me with her intelligence or her work ethic, but one couldn't expect a great deal from such a new member of the team. She was still learning the ropes in terms of contributing. Root and branch view, outstanding potential. Met most expectations, gradual improvement required. Tex was trouble. A red flag poster boy, a disruptor and provocateur. He got himself into the lattice work, into the macaroni salad, into mud puddles. Tex nipped ankles, scratched, howled, whimpered. He squirted our cut pile carpet with his pungent urine. He downloaded pornography on the internet. Unless it was Charlie, or Alice, or Mary Ellen, or me. Tex was building something in his room, something dangerous. One night late, I thought I heard him working with a drill or a lathe. The next morning, I tried to get a look in there when Tex was out doing his aerobic exercises. Every time I tried to peek my head into his room, Tex would bolt through the door flap and tear around the corner so fast, his ridiculous tongue flapping, that I had to pretend I was straightening a picture on the wall outside his door. He growled until I went away. On a Monday morning in March, about 2 months after Tex moved into our house, I called in sick to work after yet another sleepless night. My nerves were simply too frazzled to be an effective workplace contributor. My supervisor, Manny, a Latino go-getter, a successful left brain thinker, and a textbook ENTJ on the Myers-Briggs, suggested that I drink some Red Bull and get my fat, shitty ass in. While I was talking on the phone with Manny, whose brash and straightforward conversational style made him popular with FedEx delivery guys and elevator repairmen, Tex urinated on the kitchen floor, right in front of me. And then he stood there looking up at me, challenging me to do something about it, as if to say, that happened. You got anything to say? What would I do about it? We both knew the answer. I'd get down on my hands and knees and clean it up. What choice did I have? Sighing, I told Manny I wouldn't be able to come in that day. Things are heating up over here. Maybe you should heat your resume up while you're at it, he said. At times, I felt so powerless and alone. At night in bed, Mary Ellen glared at me as if I were a stranger. I blamed Tex for this. He was ruining everything we held dear. How could we go on pretending he wasn't destroying our family? Mary Ellen told me to get a grip. The kids avoided me. They had chosen sides. Clearly, they loved this puppy and had forgotten Willie and all that he had accomplished in his 8 years with us. That's when I understood that Willie was my dog, my favorite, and Tex was theirs. They didn't know any better. I convened no more family meetings. Sleep eluded me. In vivid and recurring nightmares, I heard the click, click, click of Tex's claws on the linoleum floor, the sound growing progressively louder. Click, click, click. I sat bolt upright in bed, sweating and chilled. Mary Ellen pressed herself against the wall, moving away from me. Morning in America, the smell of eggs and toast in the air, coffee percolating, the radio buzzing with news, death in Iraq, black sites, anthrax, wiretapping, backpacks zipped, jackets lost and found. Where's your homework? The congested kitchen throbbed with activity. Put your shoes on. Yellow cake uranium. I made sandwiches and folded napkins for packed lunches. Suicide bombers. No, there's no time to use the computer, Charlie. It's time for school. I kissed my children and wife goodbye before they rushed out the door, all three of them. Click, 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 and then it was just the two of us again, this puppy and me. Tex watched me scoop hard brown pellets of food into his bowl. Bending to his will, I served him as if he were my master, but he did not appear grateful for the service. He regarded my compliance as his birthright. For the first time in my life, I questioned the practice of electing a pet dog. The whole system seemed flawed to me. You might as well invite a highway drifter into your home, a shiftless vagabond, a drunken cadger, and handcuff yourself to him for 8 years. You feed him a gross ton of food, which he summarily craps out on your floor or on your lawn. You always have to clean up after him. The quiet neighbors complain about his barking. More often than not, he doesn't even come when you call him. He doesn't speak your language. I could go on, but I think the case has been made. This is not to say, however, that all puppies behave in this manner. Willie was never like that. He ingratiated himself with us. Willie wanted us to like him. You could see it in his eyes. Willie desperately wanted us to like him, and that maniacal degree of shamelessness, a quality I found off-putting in human beings, was nothing short of endearing in a shelter dog. At 10 o'clock in the morning, after the kids and Mary Ellen had gone to school, Tex sauntered through the living room without a care in the world. Now, I want it noted for the permanent record that I'm no expert on canine genitalia, but I believe that anyone, including innocent children and the elderly, would have shared my shock at the sight of the private parts swinging between his stumpy legs. Had Tex been sired by a caribou? I was tempted to put a pair of Bermuda shorts on him just so that I could finish my Cheerios. Tex ambled from room to room, his testicles bobbling like overripe kiwis. He urinated here and there, sprinkling a few drops wherever and whenever the urge struck. I could have sworn I heard him bark out a laugh. During the day, Tex didn't have anything to do, didn't keep to a regular schedule, wouldn't take suggestions or helpful advice. I followed him around, amazed by his freedom flaunting. When he worked in his room, I became even more nervous. He kept the door closed whenever he was in there. Our neighbors grew to hate him. Every time I released him to the outdoors, he immediately pooped on their lawns, bit off the heads of their flowers, and made so much noise that they threatened to call the police. I didn't blame them for their heated response. "He's your dog," they said. "No, he's not," I said. "Honestly, I didn't pick him. He just showed up on our doorstep." I had once enjoyed a sterling reputation on our cul-de-sac. I was widely considered one of the most enthusiastic members of the neighborhood watch committee. I was known for my smile, the booming hello I offered everyone, my willingness to pitch in on community initiatives. I was nothing if not cordial. Those days were forgotten, thanks to Tex's behavior. Now my neighbors were watching me with distrust. The people who used to pat Willie's head and rub his belly while Willie rolled in the grass with his legs in the air were now forming coalitions against my family, against me. I missed another day of work. I called Manny and explained that we had a new puppy in the house. I was involved in a domestic dilemma, I said, and would need to take a few more days off. "You're just digging yourself deeper and deeper," he said, and handed the phone to Gail, a loyal full-time employee with no previous references but excellent intrapersonal skills, as if he, Manny, were too disgusted to listen to any more. In a desperate moment of weakness, I told Gail about Tex. Amazingly, Gail's voice became bright and lively. She said that she understood completely. She was a cat owner, a cat caregiver, and things could get hairy. Sometimes ignoring domesticated animals was the best policy, Gail advised. Tex would come around to my way of thinking eventually if I ignored him. I wondered if Manny was still standing there, staring at her with a disgusted look on his face. For once, Gail didn't pause or stutter. Clearly, she knew a great deal about such matters and relished the opportunity to instruct me in the perils of pet stewardship. If simply ignoring Tex proved ineffective, Gail suggested a 10-minute timeout in the locked bathroom. "See if that doesn't change his tune," she said with a laugh. And if that didn't prove to be an effective anger management technique and Tex continued to act out, Gail told me that I should consider a strategic food withdrawal followed by sleep deprivation. "Keep all the lights on in his room and play glam rock in full blast. We're talking Winger, Bon Jovi, Poison. He'll comply with your wishes. He'll know who's boss then." I wanted to get off the phone. "Well," I said, "okay, thank you for your input." Gail kept talking. She'd never sounded more animated in the decade I'd known her. Food withdrawal was a very extreme, yet very effective solution, she said in a conspiratorial whisper, but only to be considered as a last resort after all other options had been exhausted. She wished me luck and suggested I send regular updates via email or IM. I did not lock up Tex or deny him the comforts of food and sleep. That wasn't my style. I believed in reaching a accord through means of diplomacy, compromise, and empathy. The conflict only intensified. Tex mangled my favorite pair of running shoes. He chewed up a half-dozen paperbacks on my bookcase and reduced my favorite bathrobe to soggy shreds of plaid flannel. At night, I couldn't sleep or get comfortable in bed. Mary Ellen couldn't stand my fidgeting and sighing. She asked me to please take my pillows to the couch downstairs. "But I want to sleep with you," I told her. "Just for tonight," she said, and handed me my pillow. "I need a little space." Tex was tickled by this turn of events. I could see it in his eyes. He peeked out from the comfort of his bedroom and stared at me, a big stupid grin on his face. It was impossible to deny his popularity. Nothing short of a scandal would have diminished his luster, but he was too careful, too folksy about his mishaps, too cute to fail. Exiled on the couch, unable to sleep, I plotted a coup. I didn't need anybody's help, I decided. There would be no paper trail, no more calls to Gail. I could handle this one myself. In the living room, Tex and I stared at each other like gunslingers in a Western. He was the dumbest looking dog I'd ever seen. Dogs by their nature usually look slow-witted, out of touch with humanity, yet graced with an enormous capacity for wonder. But this one was more frightening because of his arrogance. He appeared to be smirking at all times. He took pride in the outward display of knowing nothing while inwardly strategizing and conspiring against me. I see what you're doing. I propped myself on one elbow. You hope to bring ruin upon this family, but you won't get away with it. You may have fooled my wife and kids, but I know you're a fake, and public opinion is turning. Our neighbors are on to you. They see through your performance. Woof, woof, nice try. You can't conceal your psychosis behind a mask of innocence forever. Remember that. You're not nearly as clever as you think. The mask will soon crack. It appalled me that I was fighting this battle alone. My family had accepted Tex into their lives without even questioning the spurious manner in which he had entered our home. Now they had all but chosen him over me. We've had dogs before you, I reminded Tex, and there will be many dogs after you. This too shall pass. Tex didn't reply. He looked at me with without pity or remorse. Then he returned to his room and nudged the door shut with his snout. Early the following morning, I awakened from a dead sleep and knew what to do. The plan had come to me in a dream. Tex, it seemed, would have to make a few mistakes so glaring that my wife and kids could no longer ignore the puppy's malevolent influence on our domestic tranquility. Before my family stirred, I manufactured a crime scene with incriminating evidence: a shredded dish towel, an overturned lamp, and a student paper of Mary Ellen's perforated with my own slobbery teeth marks. I scattered the pages about. Then I bit a doggy biscuit in half, leaving one piece on the floor by the couch and swallowing the other half, thereby destroying the evidence. I ground one of Charlie's favorite video games under my boot heel, destroying it completely. I ripped the blonde hair out of Alice's favorite doll and flung the synthetic strands on the carpet. Finally, in a stroke of genius, I wrote a quick note on a pink post-it. Went out for delicious donuts for the family I love. Back in 20 minutes. Love, Daddy. Was that enough? I worried that it was not enough. So I urinated on my wife's cardigan. I worried about reading this. So I urinated on my wife's cardigan sweater, the one she wore around the house a few times a week. I'd given it to her 3 years earlier and was surprised and pleased in those halcyon days by how much she adored it. I was saddened to see it defaced by Tex. But an effective exit strategy required such sacrifice. Still, I wasn't sure they'd see it my way. Tex had enormous appeal. So I made the executive decision to defecate on our couch. Thinking outside the box, I squatted over my favorite cushion and emptied my bowels. I'll confess to a moment of uncertainty. Was I handling the situation well? I wondered. From the get-go, I had my doubts. Should I have taken a different approach to incentivize my team? We all had a lot on our plates that quarter. Mary Ellen was so deep in the weeds with those student papers, you couldn't see her face anymore. The kids were giving as good as they got. Somebody needed to push the envelope. We couldn't let the grass grow on this one. In a family such as ours, the team leader had to do some heavy lifting to stay one step ahead of the paradigm shifts. So I completed my Davenport project in record time, hurried to the bathroom, and performed the necessary ablutions. Chuckling to myself, I banged on the puppy's bedroom door. Wake up, you adorable little sleepyhead. Tex tore out of his room, barking like a maniac. He dove for my ankles, snapping with his sharp teeth, but I danced out of the way. Ha ha ha. Taunting him with my laughter, I ran circles around the soiled couch. Tex leaped onto the cushions. His right front paw landed squarely in my feces. He jumped back down and ran around the house, smearing it all over the carpet. Game, set, match, dad. Bye-bye, I said, and hurried out the door. I rang the front doorbell to wake up the family, pulled out of the attached garage, and drove away laughing. When Mary Ellen saw that disgusting mess, she would be outraged, horrified, and rightly so. She'd finally realized what a terrible mistake she'd made. Even the kids would be revolted. They'd cover their mouths and run around in circles going, ew, Tex made wee-wee on Mommy's sweater and doo-doo on the couch. And 20 minutes later, Daddy would reappear. All smiles and innocence, the returning hero, carrying a bright pink and orange box filled with fresh, delicious donuts. Greeted by pandemonium, Daddy would march in and restore order. I would prevent Mary Ellen from cleaning it up herself. Let me do it. I'd volunteer, a no-brainer considering the origin of the mess. You shouldn't have to put up with this. That dog, huh? I'll tell you. Donning yellow dishwashing gloves with surgeon-like confidence, I would both instigate the cleanup efforts and delegate responsibilities. Kids, go in the kitchen and have some donuts. I bought all your favorites. And to Mary Ellen, make no mistake, after I clean up here, we'll go out and buy a new couch. Any style you want, your choice. Later that afternoon, Tex would be tried and convicted as a war criminal. Soon, he would be out of our lives forever. First, though, we'd sit down as a loving family and enjoy the donuts that wonderful Daddy had brought home. We would laugh and celebrate. Then we'd have our last family meeting. There would be some new business to discuss. I expected the vote to be unanimous. That puppy wouldn't know what hit him, and peace would be restored at last.